All right, buckle up for this one. Today we're going deep on James Whitey Bulger,
Oh, this will be good.
Boston mob boss, FBI informant, and get this, on the run for 16 years.
The guy's like a walking contradiction.
Exactly. Was he a mastermind? Just a lucky criminal?
I mean, that's what makes Bulger so fascinating.
Even years after, right?
Years after. We're going through articles, biographies, court records.
Trying to figure this guy out.
You got it. See how he inspired terror, but also, weird as it is, a kind of admiration?
So let's start at the beginning. Bulger's childhood, South Boston, wasn't exactly, well, you know.
Leave it to Beaver. Haha.
Yeah.
Not even close. This is a kid, first arrest at 13.
13.
13. Think about that. Barely a teenager. Already in trouble. And by 26, Alcatraz. Armed robbery.
Jeez.
That early exposure to the criminal world, prison, it shaped him. Had to.
But then it gets even weirder. In prison, Bulger volunteers for this experiment. LSD.
Yeah, the LSD experiments. Wild.
He claimed it gave him insomnia, terrible nightmares.
Who knows if that's true? Or just part of the Bulger mystique, right?
Right. But imagine you're in Alcatraz, then you add experimental drugs messing with your mind.
Could that explain some of his ruthlessness later on, or was it just an excuse?
Tough to say. Adds to the mystery, though. So fast forward his rise in the Winter Hill Gang. This wasn't just street smarts. This guy was cold.
Calculated, instilling fear. Violence was a tool.
Like with Donald McGonigal.
McGonagall, rival Mullen gang. Bulger thought his brother was involved in one of his guys' deaths.
So typical gang stuff, right?
The motive, yeah, but how he did it. Bulger just drives up to McGonagall, broad daylight, shouts his name, shoots him dead.
Bold move.
A statement, cross me and you're done. That's the message.
Cold-blooded. But there were times he was, I don't know, almost reasonable. Like when his own gang leader, Killeen, got killed.
Killeen, feuded with Winter Hill gang.
Bulger negotiates a truce. Doesn't go on a rampage.
Shows he wasn't just some hothead. Could be diplomatic. When it worked for him, of course.
So is this strategic? Leadership potential? Or just another way to grab more power?
Who knows? It's like a puzzle, and the pieces don't quite fit. Speaking of puzzles, there's the whole FBI thing.
The elephant in the room.
Right. This is where it gets messy.
John Connolly, FBI agent, grew up with Bulger.
Becomes his handler. Connolly thought Bulger was the key to taking down the Italian mafia.
So Bulger gives them info on his rivals. Seems like a win-win.
Except it became this corrupt partnership. Bulger uses Connolly's protection to wipe out his competition.
Wow. Basically, free reign to commit crimes. The FBI looked the other way.
Crazy, right?
Betrayal of public trust. Big time. What was Connolly thinking? Naive? Or was he in on it?
Connolly always said he was following orders, that using guys like Bulger was the FBI strategy.
Even J. Edgar Hoover was on board, supposedly.
Connolly's argument, Bulger helped take down the mafia.
But the cost. Lives lost, families ruined, all because of this twisted alliance.
It makes you think, were they really justified? Or did the FBI cross a line?
A question that still hangs over them.
Def.
And of course, Bulger's story doesn't end there. 1995, he hears about charges coming down, and poof, he's gone.
Vanishes.
Huge manhunt. Bulger and his girlfriend, Katherine Gregg, off the grid for 16 years.
Living under fake names, always moving.
Could you imagine?
Tough life, constant fear of getting caught. But Bulger, he didn't always lay low.
No.
Nope. He and Gregg spotted at tourist spots, even went back to Alcatraz.
Hold on. Alcatraz. As a tourist.
You got it. The prison he escaped from.
That's either ballsy or incredibly stupid.
Hard to say. Just adds to the whole, was he a mastermind or just incredibly lucky question.
Maybe both. But luck runs out. 2011 it happened.
Not a shootout or anything dramatic. An old neighbor in Santa Monica.
In Santa Monica?
Yeah, recognizes Katherine Gregg from one of those public service announcements.
Wow.
Tips off the authorities. A beauty queen brought him down.
Crazy how it ends sometimes. 16 years on the run, and that's how it goes down. So after all that, how does Bulger react to finally being caught?
They say when the cops busted into his place, he refused to kneel.
Really?
Yep, just rolls his eyes and says, I ain't getting down on my fine knees.
Defiant to the end. But he couldn't outrun justice forever. Back to Boston, facing a ton of charges.
His trial, 2013 media frenzy. 83 years old at this point.
83.
83. Convicted on 31 counts, racketeering, involvement in 11 murders.
That's a lot.
No kidding. And even at trial, still defiant, wouldn't admit guilt for the murders.
Oh, wow.
Even tried to argue he should get immunity. Because he was an FBI informant, remember?
Like, he believed his own story, even with all the evidence against him.
It's wild.
Fascinating, though, right? Almost like the lies and the truth blurred together in his mind. But sadly, the story gets even darker. 2018.
Yeah. Transferred to a new prison and within hours, murdered.
Brutal.
Brutal end to a dark and violent life. Investigation found major security issues, exposed a lot of problems in the prison system itself.
A sad, disturbing final chapter. And even now, Bulger's legacy casts a long shadow. Makes you think about justice, corruption, good versus evil.
It really does. Was he a mastermind? Ruthless manipulator? And how much did the FBI's actions help him rise? Contribute to all the damage?
Questions we'll keep digging into.
Absolutely. Stay with us. Back again. It's crazy to me that we're even talking about this.
I know, right?
Bulger's story, it's not just about one guy going bad. It says something about the time and place. South Boston back then?
Your 20th century.
Working class Irish-American community. Loyalty, respect, but also violence, all kind of baked in.
He was a product of his environment.
Almost like he had no choice, you know?
So what were those forces that let someone like Bulger get so powerful?
Southie, as they called it, was tight-knit, strong identity, but also a lot of poverty, feeling shut out.
From the rest of the city, you mean?
Yeah, and there was this deep distrust of authority, feeling like outsiders, perfect for a guy like Bulger to exploit.
He knew how to play on that resentment.
Oh, absolutely. Understood their fears, their loyalty, their anger, used it all. Imagine. You're struggling to make ends meet, feeling ignored, and here comes Bulger, doing favors, protecting businesses, and all the while saying the cops are the enemy.
Creating his own system almost.
His own twisted version of law and order, judge, jury, and executioner all rolled into one.
And by being this Irish champion, he used that against the Italian mafia.
The Italians had run things for a long time. Bulger tapped into that us versus them.
So it wasn't just personal greed.
Nope. It was calculated, ethnic pride, playing on that division.
Even the worst criminals, they don't exist in a vacuum.
Never. The social, the political, it all matters. Their motives, their influence comes from the world they're in.
So we got the environment, the pressures that helped create Bulger. But what about the man himself? Was he just born bad? Or was there some trigger?
The big question. Some say psychopath. Right. No empathy, manipulative, huge ego, and of course loves violence.
Looking at his crimes, how cold he was. It fits.
Tempting to just call him a psychopath and move on. But some say it's not that simple.
Oh.
He had real relationships. Affection for Catherine Gregg, his longtime girlfriend, even for his brother.
Wait, his brother. William Bulger, the state senator.
The one and only.
No, that's a family reunion I'd avoid.
Right. William was this respected politician, all about public service, always said he had no clue about his brother's life, devastated when it all came out.
Man, that adds another layer of tragedy to this whole thing. Two brothers, same background, totally different paths.
Nature versus nurture. Was Whitey just wired that way? Or did his choices make him who he was?
Maybe that's what makes Bulger so interesting. We might never know for sure.
You got it.
But I think that's what we're doing here, right? Looking at it all, the
Yeah.
social stuff, the psychology, the relationships, to figure out how a Whitey Bulger happens.
Exactly. And this isn't just about Bulger. It's about all those figures throughout history. Charisma and ruthlessness all mixed up. How much is fate? How much is the world they live in?
Big question. Maybe helps us prevent more Bulgers in the future.
Right. Makes you wonder, could someone like him have gone a different way, found a less destructive path? Or was he always going to leave a trail of chaos?
Interesting thought. We focus on the individual, the mastermind, or whatever. But what about the system around them? The people who look the other way? The culture that rewards that kind of ruthlessness.
It takes a village, as they say.
So it's not just catching bad guys, it's figuring out how the system might create them in the first place.
You got it. Bulger, he's a warning about power, ambition, and what happens when people get blinded by money and influence.
And holding people accountable.
Especially those in power, yeah. Even when they say they're doing good.
We've covered a lot. Streets of South Boston to the halls of power. But there's one more thing, I think.
What's that?
How people saw Bulger. The myths, the legends.
The Robin Hood image.
Yeah, the idea that he was protecting the community. A good gangster, somehow.
Dangerous stuff.
Because that's a big part of how we remember him, right?
Mhm.
That he was different, that he was justified.
We gotta unpack that. Separate fact from fiction.
Coming up next, join us for the final part of our deep dive. We'll see what's real, what's not, and we'll explore how James Whitey Bulger changed our culture how we think about crime and justice. All right, we're back, wrapping up our deep dive on Whitey Bulger.
Quite a story.
From those brutal beginnings to the FBI connection, years on the run, and all the psychology behind it.
Yeah, we talked about how he crafted this image, this Robin Hood thing,
Right.
while doing some really terrible stuff. It's that mix, the charisma and the violence, that keeps people interested, even now.
And speaking of interest, all the books, the
The
movies,
Departed, right?
won an Oscar.
Jack Nicholson playing the Bulger character, Frank Costello, it was amazing.
But how much of it is true? Do those portrayals show the real Bulger? Or are they just making a criminal look cool?
That's always the risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
They give us a peek into that world, but they're still fiction. They have to change things, exaggerate.
For entertainment.
Exactly, like the Robin Hood angle. They miss what Bulger really did to South Boston.
Yeah.
He had his supporters, sure, but his actions hurt a lot of people. Families destroyed. The community still feels it.
Celebrating the villain, forgetting the victims.
Right. We got to be careful, see the fact in the fiction, the whole picture.
So beyond Hollywood, what's Bulger's real legacy? How will he be remembered?
It's tough to say. Definitely one of the most infamous criminals we've had. Shows how deep organized crime can go.
Yeah.
But it's more than just the crimes, it's how he did it. The corruption, the lies, the good and evil all mixed up.
And the power. What happens when people, even whole institutions, lose their way chasing money and influence?
For sure. But the biggest thing, maybe, is the debate about informants.
Using criminals to catch other criminals.
The Bulger-Connolly thing showed how that can go wrong, how law enforcement can cross the line.
Trying to do good, but
Doing bad in the process.
a cautionary tale for everyone. Reminds us that the ends don't justify everything. Making deals with the devil, it can backfire big time.
And we need to stay vigilant, hold those in power accountable, make sure justice doesn't come at the cost of our values.
Bulger. He teaches us that anyone can have a dark side, even the most charming people. Don't fall for the easy stories. The guys who claim to be heroes while acting like tyrants.
Think for yourself. Question everything. Especially those in charge. Demand the truth.
Well said. So I think that's it for our deep dive on James Whitey Bulger.
Wow.
Fascinating. Disturbing, too.
Yeah.
Hopefully you listening out there, you've got a better sense of this guy and what made him who he was.
This is what a deep dive is all about, right? Asking the hard questions, figuring things out for yourself.
So as you keep learning about Whitey Bulger, keep asking those questions. Keep digging for the truth. And don't just believe what you're told. Because sometimes the best stories, they don't have easy answers.
That's the truth.
Thanks for being with us on this one. Until next time.